Coming up this week, Shopify, Google, and Microsoft reveal their next big things in AI, a new tool that could transform how you do user research and bug reporting, some shocking new data which shows the real-world impact that AI is having on SEO, and Jony Ive and Sam Altman officially team up for a new hardware device. But what could it be? As always, if you enjoyed the briefing, hit the subscribe and the like button. So first up, after their CEO declared that AI is a non-negotiable part of life at Shopify, it's pretty clear that AI is now firmly center stage of the company's product strategy. This week, Shopify unveiled over 150 major new features as part of the company's biannual editions. Some of the most interesting new features that are relevant for product teams include new updates to Sidekick, which is Shopify's AI assistant. Sidekick can now run reports with enhanced reasoning capabilities and also generate visual assets that can be used inside Shopify stores. It has also gained a new voice chat capability that lets users share their screen to co-browse Shopify's dashboard together, which looks pretty impressive and could actually mark a UX shift in how users work with AI assistants in SaaS. The company also revealed a new MCP server that allows product teams to build AI agents, and a new generative AI theme builder that lets users simply describe the assets they want and the theme builder will handle the rest. So if you're interested in learning more about those AI features from Shopify, then head over to their editions landing page. Meanwhile, Google unveiled some seriously impressive new AI capabilities of its own this week during its I/O event. Now, there are far too many to mention here, but for product teams who use Workspace, some of the relevant updates to check out include customizable avatars that can present Google Slides presentations, real-time speech translation in Google Meet, and a new tool called Stitch, which is essentially Google's attempt at a vibe coding design tool. So let's take a look at Google Meet's real-time speech translation in action.
To Spain, to Mallorca, a España, a Mallorca, donde mi esposo se encuentra con la familia de mi esposo en Sacramento en alguna época del año y sus hermanas tienen una fiesta de amor porque ella se casó.
In this example, Gemini processes the speaker's voice to retain their tone, inflection, and expression, which creates a natural-sounding translation rather than just a generic text-to-speech output. And I think you'll agree it is actually pretty impressive. The company's new video models are also definitely worth a look, and VO3 is pretty impressive, and it comes with the ability not only to generate videos, but also to generate videos with sound, and it's now getting pretty hard to tell the difference between AI-generated content and non-AI content. Here's some examples of that in action.
So we're finally here.
Anyone can make a podcast now.
Did you know that Jason Calacanis was an early investor in Uber?
Google says its new video models will be rolled out across its portfolio of products, including Notebook LM, which will get video generation capabilities alongside audio. And while we're on the topic of using generative AI in the workplace, Klarna's CEO has also dabbled with the use of AI avatars this week. During the company's latest earnings calls, he used his own AI avatar to give updates to investors. Now, it does feel a little bit bizarre for a CEO to do this, but to be fair to him, it demonstrates a willingness to embrace AI in a way that's perhaps a little bit less controversial than the company's previous announcement, which got them some pretty bad press, which was around them ditching humans for AI in customer service. In other news this week, Microsoft hosted a major event of its own where it unveiled GitHub's new coding agent. So the latest iteration of Copilot means that it can now act as an autonomous agent, which is capable of handling tasks like bug fixes, adding new features, and code cleanups. So users can assign tasks directly to Copilot, and Copilot will pick the ticket up and let you know when the work is done. Human reviews are still mandatory at this stage during this process, but early hands-on reviews from engineers are actually pretty positive. In this example, GitHub's agent was assigned a task, and the pull request that it produced was, in quotes, spot on. So despite the fact that Copilot could replace traditional engineering as we know it, engineers seem pretty impressed with this result, which could potentially free them up to do other things. Microsoft also announced this week a new research and development product called Discovery that uses AI agents to tackle complex scientific research. Microsoft says the platform has already aided in the development of a new coolant for data centers, which are notoriously bad for the environment, which cuts down a process that would have typically taken months or years down to just 200 hours. During the Build conference, CEO Satya Nadella and CTO Kevin Scott both outlined their visions of what they call an agentic web. And here are some insights from the keynote speech from Satya Nadella. He says that the agentic web will emerge as a new platform that represents a technological shift that moves beyond individual applications to a generalized scalable framework for sophisticated AI-driven solutions. The technology, he says, will embrace an open and composable stack built on open technologies, including MCP, that enables seamless integration and orchestration of agents, which will ultimately rediscover the original ethos of the web through openness and accessibility. Knowledge workers, he said, will become agent managers, who orchestrate fleets of AI agents to enhance their productivity that will in many ways reflect previous transformations that brought us email, calendars, and chat. He also says that domain-specific agents will give companies a competitive advantage and that upskilling employees will be essential. But rather than enrolling in formal training programs, Nadella suggests that employees should undergo organic upskilling through the widespread adoption of AI tools. Now, as the CEO of Microsoft, he probably would say that because he provides most of those tools. But nevertheless, it's an interesting perspective on what the future of the web could be. OpenAI also previewed its own AI agent called Codex this week. And one thing that stood out for me as being quite interesting is that OpenAI's head of desktop and agents, Alexander Ambirikos, told journalists that it's not just engineers who are actually using Codex, but also non-technical people like product managers who are using Codex to suggest or validate changes before pulling in engineers. So in the future, questions around sizing, feature feasibility, or tech debt could be handled directly by agents who have direct access to code bases. And I'm sure engineers would be pretty happy to ditch some of the meetings often involved in those discussions. But on the flip side, this may mean that engineers feel wary about losing some of their status as the go-to people for decision making. And if you're interested in learning more about the technology behind AI agents and also the opinions of how the world of work is transforming, then head over to Substack this week, where I explore multi-agent AI architecture. So this piece looks at the 5 different types of AI agent architecture, including things like networks, supervisors, and hierarchies. Plus, I take a look at the AI companies that want to replace us. So that is startups that have been funded on the promise to replace humans, plus insights from the CEOs of Figma, Nvidia, Microsoft, and more on how to become irreplaceable. So if you're interested in learning more about what CEOs are saying about how to stay relevant in the AI age, then head over to Substack for that this week. Now let's take a look at some tools you can use, and we'll start with a product called Octa. So Octa is a Y Combinator company that essentially helps you with the process of integrating enterprise products into your business. If you've ever worked on an integration with an enterprise product, then you'll know that it takes a long time to get through business requirements, technical requirements, statements of work, and so on. So this product is specifically focused on helping companies integrate with large enterprises. They say that their AI agents capture requirements, generate artifacts, and streamline discovery and deployment, turning weeks into hours. So in many ways, this product is another example of how disciplines like product management and project management are being replaced by AI. Next are 2 products that operate in the same sphere but with slightly different solutions. The first is a company called Prism, which describes itself as the AI that watches your session replays. So this tool identifies the moment that users get stuck and creates a visual representation of that journey, which allows you to then identify those points of friction, and Prism will then automatically create issues in Linear and GitHub to identify and fix those problems, which essentially transforms the bug reporting process and also has an indirect impact on product designers who are looking to remove friction from journeys. The other product is Propulolis, which also promises to automate the QA process. This approach is a little bit different. So this approach uses synthetic users, which simulates swarms of autonomous browser agents that test your key product journeys for you by running hundreds of user sessions simultaneously on your product, covering far more scenarios and edge cases than a manual QA or tester ever could. So this is designed to replicate exactly how users will experience your product before you deploy anything, and has AI agents at the heart of it. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can transform your testing processes, then check out Prism and Propulolis. And the final tool for this week is inspired by last week's update on Airbnb's new icons, which were a little bit controversial. Some people loved them, some people hated them. But if you're a fan of skeuomorphic icons and you'd like to generate some icons of your own, then you can simply describe what type of icon you'd like to create. And this tool, B&B Icons, will generate those for you. Now let's take a look at some data and trends for the week. So first up, according to a new study, Google's AI overviews are leading to a massive 56.1% lower click-through rate on desktop and a 48.2% lower click-through rate on mobile. So this is data that was published as part of a study which looked at conversion rates for mail online. And as you can see from this graph, we've got 2 scenarios here. The first is when AI overviews are not shown in blue, and the second is when AI overviews are shown on Google in orange. And you can see that there's a massive decline on desktop from 13% down to 5% for mail online, and from 20% down to just 7% for mobile. The company's director of SEO described the drop as pretty shocking, and the report also says that 25 to 34-year-olds on mobile are the power users of AI overviews, which rely on AI overviews 50% of the time. And when those users do click, they typically tend to choose brands that are recognized like Reddit and YouTube. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult for publishers and products to get the traffic they used to have through SEO. And in many ways, the beneficiaries here are the large big tech companies with pre-existing brand recognition, because when you're scanning through some results, you pick the option that looks the most trusted. So it's definitely tough out there for tech companies who had previously relied on SEO traffic. And one company that's been particularly badly hit by this is Stack Overflow. And this week, an updated graph of their traffic went viral on X, which shows us the number of questions over time. So as you can see here, there has been a massive decline in the past year, to the point where Stack Overflow's traditional business is pretty much now non-existent. But AI isn't just impacting the SEO of companies, it's also impacting the job market. And a new report suggests that entry-level tech jobs are evaporating for new graduates, with many blaming AI. The unemployment rate of recent graduates has jumped from 4.6% to 5.8%, and Gen Z, as a result, is turning to alternative career paths. The proportion of students now taking vocational degrees is up from 15 to 20%, and Gen Z seem to be opting for physical jobs that are less likely to be displaced by AI. In many cases, it is junior jobs that are being displaced more than senior jobs, as AI is more capable of replicating procedural and repetitive tasks that might perhaps be more associated with entry-level jobs. So it is extremely tough for new graduates to start off, particularly in careers like tech. But even when Gen Z do get interviews, some of them are actually being conducted by AI, which in itself is an issue. So this week, several videos have gone viral over on TikTok showing the problems of using AI job interviewers. And in one example, the job interviewer just kept repeating the phrase vertical bar Pilates. The other risk with AI-led interviews and remote interviews in general is that candidates will cheat. And this week, the founder of a notorious product called Cley said that in the future, once everyone has access to AI agents, the only fair way to do interviews will be to allow everyone to cheat. Now, if you've not heard of this product before, it's called Cley, and it's an undetectable AI that sees your screen, hears your calls, and feeds you answers in real time. Now, this is highly unethical, of course, because it is cheating, but the founder makes an interesting point here, which is that there's no way to stop this, and the only way to equalize opportunities for everybody is to give everyone access to the same tools to be able to cheat. Needless to say, this isn't going down very well with Gen Z, and it's no wonder that they are opting for alternative careers as a result. Finally, this week, OpenAI has confirmed that it is acquiring Jony Ive's design consultancy firm, and that Ive is officially working with the company on potential new devices. Ive has said this week that Rabbit and Humane were both bad products, and that the new product won't be a wearable, which kind of makes me more optimistic about whatever it is that Sam Altman and Jony Ive are cooking up. In a previous video, I asked ChatGPT to guess what this device might look like, and this is what it came up with. One outlandish possibility is that perhaps they are going to create a brain-computer interface, with a new report this week from the Wall Street Journal suggesting that the number of people who get this procedure is set to more than double in the next 12 months. This process involves a quarter-sized hole that is bored into the skull. A chip is then inserted into the brain, and each of the threads connected to the chip is inserted into the brain's motor cortex by a special surgical robot. Now, this may be a little bit far-fetched for the first version of OpenAI's hardware, but it potentially does give us a glimpse of what the future might look like. And on that note, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for listening and watching. I'll be back next week with another briefing.